So she says here, right at the beginning, the very first thing we read, there is nothing you can do about what interests you or energizes you. It is simply who you are. Trying to change this, not accepting this, will always result in a tiring, frustrating struggle. And so a lot of the book is talking about exactly that, about, all the people that we kind of mold our life to please, and how destructive that is to our spirit. And she says constantly, and we'll look at this repeatedly throughout the book, you know who you were meant to be. You just haven't had the opportunity or the understanding of how to listen. And so we're going to explore, that's why I say about this book that it's not just like a fluffy self-help book. It actually guides you through that process. How do I figure out what are the things that I should be focused on in my life, right? That aren't what my parents want, isn't what society wants, isn't what my husband, wife, or kids expect, isn't what my friends expect. But how do I figure out exactly what I'm here for, what speaks to me, and what I should pursue? And she goes through a very systematic and almost scientific approach to figuring that out. So if those are some questions that you struggle with, definitely stay here and check this out, or pick up this book, even better, which I think is probably going to be Amazon. Is going to be your best bet for that. Yeah, Elizabeth, I hear that. I personally don't do audiobooks, but I could totally see how that would be. That's where I do my podcasting. The way I don't know what excites me. Yeah, she talks about that. Don't feel bad about that. That's completely normal, especially when you've been kind of stuck in the weeds for so long, pleasing others. This is who you're meant to be. Okay. Hasna, I'm going to let you answer those. Just so I don't keep going back. Ooh, Untethered Soul is a fantastic one. I was talking about it this morning, saying it's one of the books that I could just talk about all day. Lindsay Gibson's books are one, and The Untethered Soul, Power of Now, the combination of those two, I could just speak about them all day long. It makes me want to redo The Untethered Soul, because we did it in our book club in month 3, I think it was. And I could go right back and do it all over again. I just love it. Okay, so this book has a lot of case stories of patients, clients that she worked with as a therapist, and using their stories as basis. So I won't read most of the personal stories. So we'll just try and kind of get the basis of what they're saying, or what she's using their story to express. And she says one of the biggest conflicts that we have internally is when we're choosing the thing that we're passionate about, or not passionate, what we're going to pursue as far as work or things that we do. The big question is, should I help others or should I express myself? Meaning, should I be a nurse or should I be an artist, right? Should I be a doctor or should I be a musician? And it's not always just, medical versus art. There's lots of different variations of that, but that's the easiest one to kind of wrap our heads around. And that's often one of the kind of key things that keeps people from not figuring out who they are, is because they ask themselves that question subconsciously, and they go towards helping others because they have tendencies to get their worth from either the validation of others or just from the support of others. Most often because they were taught in childhood that their value was through doing things for other people. And so she says, this is the dilemma that this book addresses. You are probably familiar with Nora's predicament, for it is one many of us encounter. To choose one direction would mean giving up our deepest desires for self-fulfillment, but to choose the other would mean feeling irresponsible. The good news is that this dilemma is an illusion. No one is really stuck like this. We have been taught to think in absurd extremes, as if we had to choose one or the other, our happiness or the good of others. says, take a moment and see if you recognize yourself in the following description. So at the end, I'll ask you to rate it she asks you to rate it 1 to 10. How deeply does it resonate? But there's so many little bits here that I thought a fun exercise to do would be that anytime you hear a little segment that applies to you, because they won't all apply, probably they won't, for most of us, they probably won't all apply. But every time you hear one little segment that applies to you, just drop an emoji, any emoji in chat. And let's see, let's get a visual representation for how deeply people resonate with this reality. Okay, so there's lots of little segments. So every time you hear one that resonates with your experience, drop an emoji in chat. You guys are trolling Hasna. I love it. All right. You are unfulfilled in a key area of your life. You would like a change, but cannot see a way to make it. Often you feel frustrated and blocked. You are very attuned to the needs of your loved ones, whether you show this outwardly or not. Duty is taken seriously. You have a humanitarian streak and want to improve the lives of other people. You daydream about a different kind of life and have a strong desire to be free of the burdens you carry. We probably should all be dropping an emoji for that one, right? Unless you're already doing the thing that you love most, which kudos to you. Perhaps you have bought some of the tools needed to fulfill your dream or plan and even allowed yourself limited time for its pursuit. So imagining like an artist, right? So getting your easel, is it called? Your art, maybe painting every now and again, but not really committing, right? So that's what she's talking about. You may have come close to making a major change in your life, but it never quite happened. Responsibilities sidetracked you, and you turned back to the familiar life you already know how to do. And we had this chat in our Discord community this morning that for mothers especially, that's such a huge thing, right? Putting your own needs, your own desire, your own dreams on the back burner to serve the family, especially the kids, but often, unfortunately, the husband as well. That was a big discussion this morning. This was a relief because you did not want to appear selfish or egocentric. You hate the thought of not pulling your own weight. For instance, depending on someone else's financial support while you train in a new field or borrowing money for a new venture seems irresponsible to you. Often you have thought to yourself, how can I pursue my plans and dreams when others still need me so much? And so now she asks you, circle below how closely you feel this description fits you. Not at all like me to exactly like me. And for anybody who came in the middle, I'll show it again and you can screenshot if you like. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does this resonate? Hey, Angie. Hey, Blissful. That last line, yes. How can I pursue my plans and dreams when others still need me so much? That's like, seems like the mother motto, right? Unfortunately, so much of putting yourself on the back burner. Okay, I see some very high scores, a lot of 9s and 10s, a couple of middle ones. Oh, right, I can pin a message. Yes, who said that? Mariana, that's true. I should do that. Somebody post the author and title, and I'll pin it. I'll try and do that. 5, I'm slowly realizing to prioritize myself. Yes. 1,000, Heather. Yes, I can see that in the conversations we've had in group. I don't even know what my dreams are. Then this book is absolutely perfect for you, and I highly recommend you read it. Whether you do it in our community or not, definitely pick it up and read it. My goal is to sell this book out on Amazon because I know it's limited. They have a limited print. I really feel like it should sell out. If there was going to be a book that you read, especially if you're feeling like that you're not sure what your dreams are, you don't know really who you are, what you're supposed to be doing, who you were meant to be, then this is a book I couldn't recommend more. 110, okay. Ten. I really want to quit my job to pursue my creativity, but need a financial cushion first. Yeah, she talks about that. We'll see that in a minute. Sure, I can show you the quote. She talks about that, and we spoke about it in our community this morning, that it's a mistake that a lot of people make. They think it's an all or nothing. So as soon as they realize what their dream is, they feel like that immediately means I should take action today. And she says that's just like the first step. The first step is the realization. You don't need to jump in with both feet. And when I spoke to her, I did a video interview with her this week that we're going to be watching in our community as, like, we call it movie night. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be watching it in parts. One of the things that I asked her was about that. What happens when you're so busy in life, when you have other responsibilities? How do you align both these ideas, this idea of going after what you want and having these like real life responsibilities? And, you know, she gives a long answer for it, but the short of it is that it doesn't need to be all or nothing. You can start with little slivers. You can start with 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day or whatever time you can make. Everyone, and if you say I don't even have that, I'd love to see your schedule and your daily, because I think every one of us can carve out 10 minutes or 5 minutes of our day to just do the beginning steps, right? And not to worry so much about the end goal. You know, when can I quit my job? When can I make this my full-time business? When am I going to be a millionaire? Those questions don't matter. We can't get there without the steps necessary to get there, right? And so it's taking those steps, even if it's only a sliver at a time at the beginning. That's going to snowball. That's going to, continuously gain steam. And so this dichotomy of I can only have one or the other is a false dichotomy. We don't need that. We can just begin today and allow the power of compounding returns to slowly build over time. Our movie night is Friday night, I believe, this week. Every week's a little bit different. There we go. Who You're Meant to Be by Dr. Lindsay Gibson. I believe it's with an A, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just proud when I floss the basics. Yes, and you should feel proud. You should, congratulate yourself for those little things. You know, I started about a month ago to run after hating. I still hate running, but I've started doing it, and some mornings I just totally don't feel like it. And so then I use the strategies that we looked at in our second month from the book Atomic Habits, which is just do the littlest thing. What's the littlest thing you can do toward that goal? And, people think, well, like I'll just run a bit. That's not the littlest goal. The smallest goal is put on your running shoes. Get dressed, put on your shorts and your t-shirt or whatever you go running in. And then the next small step is just go outside the house. If you want to walk outside and walk right back in with your shoes on, cool. All right. You accomplished, a step today. And then the next step is let me just walk. I don't feel like running. I don't feel like sweating. I don't feel like exerting myself and putting myself in discomfort. Great. So I'm just going to walk. And then slowly it just keeps building and building. But none of that happens if in the first step where you don't feel like going out for a 30-minute run, if in that first step you start to put a bunch of shame and guilt and self-defeating thoughts into your system, then it's never going to build. But if you just give yourself some just some empathy and some kindness and just begin building little step by little step and be proud of those steps, that's much more motivating and inspiring. I went for a walk this AM. Awesome. Yeah, the struggle for running is real. And the reason it's because it's discomfort. Our mind's always going to resist discomfort until we train it to not listen to that inner voice that hates discomfort. All right. So that was how most of us are feeling to one extent or another, right? Quickly, if you just screenshot that and you can read it for yourself later. I know it's so hot here too. I'm sitting here just sweating. Any book recommendations with practical exercise for healing from trauma? Trauma depends on what kind of trauma. Parental trauma, adult children of emotionally immature parents. There's so many. It really depends. Okay, let's continue. And so she says at the bottom here, this description that we read up here may not be a perfect fit because these things rarely are. But if you scored 5 or above, which I think is everybody, I think 5 is the lowest score I saw. So basically everybody here who participated, you match up well. If so, there are a few things we can tell about you from the preceding description. So now, how many are there? Like 9 of them. What's your score out of 9? Does this describe you? You notice your own feelings and the feelings of others, right? Drop an emoji every time one of these is true for you. You notice your own feelings and the feelings of others, right? So empathy. You want to improve your life. You tolerate unhappiness to fulfill your responsibilities to others, right? That's the people-pleasing, kind of the core thesis. You know how to act and what is expected of you. You have a strong conscience and sense of duty. You are a humanitarian and want to help improve others' lives. You feel alive when you are creative. You do not want to be selfish or egocentric. You like to be helpful, but try not to trouble others for help. I bet that one, especially when we're talking people-pleasing specifically, that last one probably really resonates with a lot of people. You like to be helpful, but try not to trouble others for help. And we probably do this all the time, you know, whether it's physical help or emotional help, right? So your friend comes to you with a problem and you immediately offer sound and empathetic and kind advice. And yet if that very same question came to you inside your own mind, your response would be a lot different, wouldn't it? You'd be a lot stricter on yourself, a lot less compassionate, a lot less kind. But when it's somebody else, somebody we care about, then it becomes much easier. And so that's a strategy that we've looked at in the past, that take that and pretend that inside your own head, there's another entity that you care about just as deeply as your friend or your family member or whoever it is you'd be giving advice to, and try and give them the same advice, meaning give yourself, your inner child or your true self, the same advice you would give to somebody you care about. Because oftentimes, unfortunately, those two things are very different. They come out of us in very different ways. I'm my own worst critic. Yes, most of us are. Who else is as critical of us as we are ourselves? Even our parents, those bad parents, right? Trauma causing parents, we're often much less destructive to our psyche than we are to ourselves. They might have instilled those thoughts that we use to torture ourselves with, but we've done way more of it than even they have done, right? For many people, not everybody, but for a lot of people. I have that book by Pete Walker. I think I read it many, many years ago. Yeah, I see it up high up on the shelf, but I haven't read it in a long time, and people constantly talk about it. My parents' judgment almost mirrors the voice in my head. Yes, that's kind of by design. That's how it works. All of the above, the whole list, yes. Well, then, the good news about that is that we know we're on track, right? Especially if you resonated with this passage of kind of like these things that, some of them keep us down, and then you resonated with the list of, the type of person you are, then you now know you're on track. This is the right place for you. And I'd say definitely read this book, whether it's with us or on your own. And she says here, because we're so hard on ourselves about some of these things, don't you think this reads like a resume for the kind of person this world needs more of? These are exceptional qualities that show concern for others, creative potential, and a well-developed sense of responsibility. The trouble is we can be such good citizens that we stop leading our own lives. And Marcus Aurelius has a saying, what's good for the bee is good for the hive. And that's kind of what I think of when I read this, is we have to take care of ourselves, because in doing so, it helps us become better people. And becoming better people is obviously going to be better for our community, the people in our lives, our families, our friends, right? How wouldn't it be better for them if we were more resolute in who we are and in the good qualities that we embody? Let me add here that there are phenomenally successful people who have very creative careers, and yet they too experience the same inner clash between what they want to do and what others need them to do. It is not the nature of the job that defines whether or not you have this conflict. It is the reasons you are doing the job at that moment. If you are pursuing a job in order to fulfill the needs of someone else, your true self will find a way to object. And as we looked all this past month in our previous book, When the Body Says No, when the body begins objecting, it first usually manifests as anxiety, depression, panic attacks, and then moves on to pains, generally in the back and so the stomach are kind of the two most common areas. And if we continue ignoring, continue suppressing, who we were meant to be, then eventually our body is going to lead into a lot of suffering in the form of illness, pain, and disease. Great book for that if you'd like to explore that philosophy a little bit more. Can you read that line again? Yes. I was going to make a video of this line actually when I reread it this morning. If you are pursuing a job in order to fulfill the needs of someone else, your true self will find a way to object. And that objection is rarely in a way that we would choose to have, right? As we said, anxiety, panic attack, illness, chronic pain, disease. Not any of the ways that we want to be hearing our body speak. You're so welcome, my friend. You're so welcome, Annie. Crying's good. Crying's okay, as long as we don't let it pull us into the deep, dark waters, right? Crying's okay as a signal of, yes, there's something here I need to excavate. There's something here for me. I need to keep digging. Every time somebody says, why did this make me cry, which is a comment I get all the time in my videos, I say, because that's your psyche trying to alert you to keep digging here. That's like the first little, it is a water metaphor, so it works well, of like the well where you finally crack through the earth far enough to get that water spring coming up. It's that first little spring, that first discovery of water. But what do you do in those instants? You don't say, well, okay, well's done. No, after that first once you hit water, you keep digging and build out that well. And so this is the same thing. Those tears are signals, hey, there's something here. Let's keep digging. This is resonating. And so don't turn away from those tears. Lean into them. And it's also a release. Yes, very true. The ease and skill we show in our daily life evaporates when we consider changing our lives to reflect more of who we really feel ourselves to be. High on our list of anxieties is the fear of selfishness, followed closely by the fear of looking foolish. When I first read this page, that was the only line that I had highlighted. Listen to this again. High on our list of anxieties of why, she's saying, why don't we do the things that we know we should do, right? The things that are calling us. High on our list of anxieties is the fear of selfishness, followed closely by the fear of looking foolish. And I thought, what a perfect summary. If you could get rid of those two things, right? If you didn't feel foolish or selfish for pursuing your own needs, your own desires, and you weren't worried what other people thought of you or thought of your goals or what your journey is, what would be left to stop you? I think there would be very little left. I think she's absolutely right that those are the core two ideas that are probably make up for 95% of the things that keep us back. I love that. Every one of us has a sense of who he or she really is. This instinct has been with us from the beginning. So for whoever it was earlier that said, I don't even know what my dreams are, what my needs are, what my wants are, this is her philosophy about it, and I love it. Every one of us has a sense of who or she really is. This instinct has been with us from the beginning, observing all that we do with the perplexed and frustrated air of an impotent advisor. Meaning that true self is sitting there all this time. It's in you. It's not something you have to go looking for. You have to go inward to find it because it's waiting for us. And that true self is sitting there being like, why aren't you doing the things that you know you should do? Why do you keep doing these things for other people instead of yourself, right? The perplexed air of an impotent, meaning can't do anything, of an impotent advisor. I thought that was a brilliant framing of that. You know deep down whether something is right for you. There's no one who cannot tell when an activity stirs up life-giving energy or conversely exhausts and frustrates. We come equipped as infants to know this in our viscera, where the tides of hormones tell us what feels good and what does not. You too came fully equipped to tell the difference within yourself between what is genuine and what is imposed. And so for me, this book was about how do I get better at listening? First of all, how do I find that voice? I know it's somewhere inside me, that true self. How do I locate even where to look? And then once I've located it, how do I get better at listening to it? And how do I get better at trusting it and myself to follow its advice? Right? And we're going to look at that in great depth over the next month. Why do you say, oh no, Annie? You got to reframe that for yourself. Oh yes, this book is going to connect with me deeply, right? Watch the way that your mind, the language your mind uses. Why, oh no? Now there's a kind of like, let's keep that back, right? Whereas we just switch one word, oh yes, and suddenly we're excited to dig in, right? The sad and marvelous thing about human beings is that we can be taught how to choose against ourselves. Boom, another mic drop line, right? We are so adaptable, so smart, and so attached to our early caretakers that we learn how to turn ourselves inside out just to be who somebody else needs us to be. Human beings have the remarkable capacity to become something other than what they really are and make it their reality. We are all prodigies when it comes to this talent, and we get started on it early in life. Whew. So good. My copy won't be here until Thursday. That's okay. That's the day we're meeting with Dr. Gibson for the first time, so that's perfect. Reminds me a little of The Alchemist. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, so for anybody who's new here, actually, if this is your first time, can you drop like a hand emoji, a hello, or a smiley face or whatever? I'd love to know kind of the breakdown. I don't know what emoji would be for a returning friend here, but let me know. What I was going to say is for anybody who is new, this is your first time. This is Who You Are Meant to Be by Lindsay C. Gibson. She's the author of a book you might be more familiar with, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And we're going to be working with her starting this Thursday, all month long in going through this book as well as reflecting back on her other books, Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and the new one, Disentangling from Emotionally Immature People. And if you want more information about that and you want to sign up and join us, all you have to do is come to my profile here, click on My So-Called Mind, and all the information will be there for you, both about the event this month with Dr. Gibson, as well as about our community in general in Sample Weekly Schedule. And you can sign up by clicking any of these buttons throughout the page. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Annika. Returning, yes. Welcome, returning friends. Hey, Teapot. Just joined the book club today. Awesome. Oh, yes, I saw Michelle in there. Awesome. Welcome. Happy to have you. All this is hitting home. Awesome. Hey, Sherry, SP, Dirk, welcome. Hook, hey, you're back. Good to see you. Jazzy, Jess, welcome. Hi, Vish. Hi, Red Rat. Casey, Gwen, welcome. Hey, Nasreen. Hey, PJ. Look at this. All the old friends showing up. Welcome, friends. Good to see you again. All right, let's keep going. And so a little summary of what we're going to do in this book over the next month with her assistance. My job in this book is to help you figure out how you can build a life based on who you were meant to be rather than who everybody else needs you to be. At a deep level, you already know the answer to the question of who you are meant to be, but for many reasons, you have forgotten. Now, you will reawaken the knowledge of what makes you feel alive and full of energy. So that's as good of a summary of what this book is going to do for you as you can find. And so if that sounds like, oh, okay, I want that sounds good, then come join us or just tune in here. There's so much. I don't think we're going to get, what time is it? It's already 12:40. There's so much even in just this first chapter. Let's see, maybe we got to read a little bit faster here. Awesome, Hook. Come join us. We're ready for you. There's a good reason why we trade in our true interests for goals that other people have set for us. The payoff in this deal is that at least you have someone who believes in you. That made me sit back in my chair and reflect on that, right? To know that someone sees potential in you, even if it is the wrong one, has a tremendous impact on our choices, especially when you are a child. The fact that someone believes in us lifts us to heights we can never achieve all by ourselves. To be believed in, even if our parents are missing our truest interests, is a compelling and inspiring experience. It easily eclipses the little voice inside that cautions us against taking that path. If you follow your loved one's advice, you need never fear the loneliness of separation from your family. Making this dream your future is one way of sidestepping the uncomfortable realization that you might be very different from them. And so when we read this in a bubble, it almost sounds like this is a positive, like she's saying this is a good thing. But she's not. She's saying this is why it seems like a good thing to us, right? Because as long as we do what our parents want, we have that the illusion that we are connected to them and that they're going to love us enough, whatever enough means for each one of us. But as we'll see, as we'll explore in this book, that's not the case. And we looked at that earlier in the morning session today, that as a people pleaser, we have to recognize that no matter how much I give, if that person is a taker, it's never going to build the relationship that I want from them. If they're an emotionally immature person, then there's no amount of doing from my side that is going to change that, right? That is going to build that connection that isn't there otherwise. And so that's an important thing for anybody who has people-pleasing tendencies to remind themselves. It's a very empowering thing, even though it feels a little scary to kind of recognize that disconnection with that person is going to be there whether we do the thing or not. We do not want to arrive at the end of our lives feeling like we have not fully lived, that something vital was left undone. And unfortunately, if you speak to old people, I used to volunteer at an old age home, and when you speak to them, this line is literally, 80% of the conversations you have in there are about regret. And, I wish I'd done this. I wish I didn't care what people thought. I'd wish I'd try to be the artist or the actor or whatever it is. I wish I had, left my husband, all those things, right? It's all about regret. Within ourselves, we have parts that can tell the difference between living our true lives, the ones we were meant to have, and the lives that have been dictated to us by other people. Or as Miguel Ruiz of the Four Agreements says, domestication, right? We have been domesticated by other people, and we then take those lessons and we self-domesticate. Now we no longer need the voices of our parents to keep us on the straight and narrow, because we do that to ourselves in our own head. And because we have transformed it into our own voice, the one we hear inside our head, we believe this is what I believe, when in reality it's what they believe, but we have just domesticated ourselves with their voices. This part of us that knows is our core, the inviolate true self, the real self, the higher self. This inner touch zone tells us who we really are and who we are meant to be. It is the white stone on which our true name is written, not the name our parents pinned on us in this lifetime, but our soul's identity. In his book, The Soul's Code, James Hillman uses his acorn theory to describe the inevitability of our personal destiny. Just as a tiny acorn holds the code for a spreading oak tree, so each of us is born with an intent that seeks to express itself every chance it gets. You are the most important person in your life. You may have tried to believe otherwise, but you have paid for this misperception with the discontent you feel or the symptoms you suffer. Oof, goes so well in line with our last book of the month, When the Body Says No, right? That you have paid for this misperception with the discontent you feel, that's the anxiety, the depression, the panic attacks, or the symptoms you suffer, right? Breaking out in hives, back pain, digestive issues, right? All those. So good. Okay, what time? 12:45. All of those, yes. That's usually where we find ourselves when we get most desperate about the healing process. And the good news is, great, it got us there, right? We're finally here where we've just like had enough. It's time for a change. We know this isn't working, not just philosophically, but from our day-to-day experience. You know, I have too much anxiety. I have too much stress. I have too many panic attacks, and my back hurts too much. My digestive stuff is just going wild, and I've just had it. Whatever I have to do, I'm willing to do it. And I can't remember who it was that said this. Recently, I saw something about someone talking about addiction. And he said, suffering is the way out, because eventually you get to a point where the suffering is so great that you're like, fine, I've had enough. I'm done with this. I think he was talking about alcoholism. It was somebody famous. I can't remember, maybe Steve-O or somebody. And I think it's the same with this emotional stuff, is that eventually we get to a point where it's just the suffering is so great that we're just like, I can't do this anymore. There must be a better way. And so we go out and we start seeking that. And that's usually what leads us to so many of these books, is that feeling. And so if you're there now, if you're at the peak of your suffering, great. You're at the peak of your suffering, right? Everything from now on is going to be, starting the healing journey, walking away from that peak. Heading downhill, right? So that's a great place to be. Discovering the desires of your real self is not an esoteric exercise. You have a moral duty to recover your happiness. Does that surprise you? What you do with your life affects the way you drive your car, talk to your children, treat your employees, and relate to your spouse or life partner. You are choosing every day what kind of force you are going to be in the world. A force for growth or a force for resignation. These may sound like abstract ideals, but their practical outcomes are very real. There is not a person in this world who has resigned himself to an unhappy and unrewarding existence who has not had demoralizing effects on the most cherished people in his life. And so if you're feeling selfish for pursuing your own needs, your own wants, your own desires, especially as a parent or as a partner or as a child of someone who has to take care of their parents, right? If you're feeling guilty and selfish, this is saying it is not selfish. It is the furthest thing from selfishness, because as you heal yourself, you're better able to be for others. And conversely, when you don't heal yourself, when you're constantly suffering, how is that not going to affect your relationships and the way you interact with other people? Of course it's going to. We know those people. We know the people who are just eternally grumpy. What happens when I go see them, or somebody else goes sees them, or they go out to the grocery store or in the Uber? What happens? Nothing. It's always the same. They're always grumpy. They're always miserable. And so it coats kind of every aspect of our life. So when we're doing the work of healing, it is not just for us, and it is definitely not selfish, because what is selfish is to continue suffering and allow that to impact everyone in our life, right? That is selfish, right? Because I'm so scared of dealing with this separation from whatever I'm connected to that's keeping me in this life that I don't want. I'm so scared of the ramifications of what happens when I do next that I'm willing to continue suffering, which means continue spreading that energy to everybody around me. That sounds like way more selfish when you frame it that way, right? Rather than doing the things I need to do to get good inside so that I can, expand this positive energy out into the world to everybody I come into contact with, and hopefully uplift them in the process. Unhappiness and a lack of fulfillment get passed down from generation to generation like bad genes, and they affect the more vulnerable, sensitive members of the family until someone shows serious symptoms of emotional problems. When what you decide to do with your life in your generation is not just about you. It is about what you are going to be giving to the world and passing down the line. Taking responsibility for your own life being satisfying and fulfilling is not a selfish act in the old sense of that word. Think of it as a psychological pollution control. We are obliged, we have to clean up our own dissatisfactions before they contaminate our relationships with others. Put to rest your fears that your desire for fulfillment is selfish. Whew. I know so many parents who need to hear that, who think like, let me just suffer so that, I can continue being who I am for my kids. When in reality, that as she says, that suffering gets passed down to generations whether you're conscious of it or not, whether you hit your kids or not, right? Whether you are an alcoholic or not, in some way, shape, or form, that suffering and negativity for the state of where I am in life is going to start affecting other people. It just has to. There's no way any of us can hold all that in and have it not affect how we live our lives. And so the most selfless thing we could do is heal ourselves so we can help others. Bam. Yes, bam indeed. Put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on someone else's. Yes. I felt at the peak of suffering. Good. You're on the down slope, the easier slope now. She does write so beautifully, and when you listen to her speak, it's the same poetic way. I don't know how she does it, but she's a special human. Awesome, blissful. I feel like who I was meant to be is to help people understand this stuff. Awesome. We need more of that in the world, for sure. Lean into that. Or I'd say, as a content creator, lean into that, but then let go of the attachment to the results. Because that's where the content creating or sharing in your own life, that's where we get demotivated and frustrated, is when we have all this stuff we want to share, and then the people that we're sharing it with aren't listening, or it's not resonating with them, and we want to shake them and say, listen, you idiot, listen to this, it's important. But recognizing that not everyone is going to be in a place where it resonates with them. They might not be ready. It might not be right for them. Their experiences might have shifted the way they see things differently. And so if you have that feeling of, I want to put this out in the world, great. Follow that, but then release all expectations for what that's going to turn out, what that's going to turn into, or how people are going to respond to it. I can't find my place in this world. Begin here. This is a great place if that's how you're feeling. Just know that, so many people are feeling that. It doesn't mean you're broken or that there's anything wrong with you. You just haven't learned to listen to your true self yet, and to do that work of heading inward and figuring that out. This book will help, will draw the map for you. How do you release expectations of others while setting expectations for yourself? For me, the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius specifically, helped so much with that. And it's focusing only on things which I can control. So I control whether I tell someone something or not, whether I share a piece of this book with someone. I can control that, so that's fine. What I can't control is what they do with it in their own minds, right? Obviously, I can't control that. And so just separating every action, every decision into controllables versus uncontrollables, right? What can I have an effect on, and what can I not, right? I won't go into my Stoic speech because we've been down this road too many times for many of the people in here. But this is a fantastic book for that. Or if you want an easier read, The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday is maybe a slightly easier read. Same ideas, but in more consumable form. So I definitely recommend checking that out and learning more about this idea of controllables versus non-controllables, right? What can I influence? What can I not? And one thing I for sure cannot is other people's actions, other people's thoughts, other people's opinions. That is not for me to focus on. I don't have, our energy is finite, and I need to save all my energy for the things that I do control, because they're plentiful enough. I can't let my energy be whittled down by things that I can't control anyways. Yeah, the book is The Daily Stoic, or Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. This is my favorite book of all time. For anybody new here who hasn't heard me talk about it ad nauseum. Awesome, Vish. Happy to have you. Yes, meditation is great. You're welcome, Quantic. Awesome, Birch. Happy to hear that. All right. Oh, shoot. We only have a couple minutes. Let's see what's... Okay, and with that, let's look on our right purpose, and we'll end there for today. Our obligation or duty is to play our parts in life so that our particular strengths and weaknesses, our very individuality, can interweave with the fabric of the world in ways that enrich and strengthen both the world and ourselves. Our individuality is our one perfect gift to our parents and the world. Thank you, Savi. Make sure to register for the book club as well, not just here through TikTok. Our individuality is our one perfect gift to our parents and the world, and it must be given, put out into the world in exchange and sharing. Otherwise, it withers away and curls into unrecognizable shapes that bear little resemblance to the pattern of intent that crystallized at our birth. Oof, that's a very lyrical little passage there. However, many of us are anxious to not harm anyone with the pursuit of our purpose. Our wish to do no harm can become so primary, we try to kill off our real selves. Few people want to know their life purpose if they think that following this purpose would lead to suffering for themselves or their loved ones. So an example of this is your parents wanted you to be a doctor or a lawyer or an architect or whatever your entire life, and you've kind of gone down that path, and then you reach the point where you're actually starting to work in that field and you realize, I hate this. This makes me miserable. Every day I go to work just like, ugh, why do I have to go? But so many people all over the world will continue to live that life because they're so scared of upsetting their parents or disappointing their parents. That's what she's talking about here. Yet, the right purpose for your life is never dangerous or harmful. There is always a path to take that fulfills you without harming others. And that's because disappointment is not harm, right? That's just like a way of looking at things. So disappointing your parents is not the same as harming them. And that's kind of something we have to integrate into our ways of thinking, right? That recognition that just because they're disappointed doesn't mean that they're harmed. It's okay for them to be disappointed. They're the ones who have to deal with that, not me. It's not my responsibility to make sure they're not disappointed. When people initially get the urge to follow their dreams, it is often in the form of fantasies about total breaks from everyday life. Oh yes, this is I remember now. We spoke about that this morning in our group, that when you read something like this, the instinct immediately, let me go quit my job, let me begin my life as an artist, even though I'm completely not set up for it, I don't have the funds for it yet, let me just run a full steam. And she's so practical in this book where she talks about like, we don't need to do that. And that often the things that our mind set, let me read instead of explaining it first. So when people initially get the urge to follow their dreams, it is often in the form of fantasies about total breaks from their everyday lives. We daydream about leaving our spouses, quitting our jobs, moving to the tropics. After being stifled for so long, can you blame the true self for going a little overboard? The subconscious mind is histrionic. Like a bad stage actor, it goes to extremes to show us a subtle truth. Learn to listen to its underlying message. You need change, instead of the harebrained solutions with which it first peppers the mind. And so that's so important and such a good point, that the mind is instantly going to go the complete opposite way of all this time I've been letting other people rule my life, so let me just do the exact opposite, which is just break away from my life completely. And she's saying that's often not the answer and is unnecessary. That's just the mind. I love the use of subtle truth here. Right? Thank you, Birch Tree. This use of subtle truth right there, that it's just showing us something. Those feelings of I need to leave my marriage, I need to leave my job, I need to run away to another country, those aren't the actual answers, although they may be after some time of reflection. That may be where it leads to. But those initial thoughts aren't necessarily the answers, but they do act as guideposts, that there's something here I need to work out. There's something in here that my true self wants changed. And so let me not overreact. Let me not go off the deep end. And let me just see those things that my mind is saying simply as like you would a child who says, has a little paper cut and it says, I'm dying. They're not actually dying. What they mean is, I'm in pain, I need relief. And so that's what our minds are telling us too. I'm in pain and I need relief. And so there's a TikTok trend a few months ago that I always talk about, where the first shot of the video is someone saying, I thought I needed a holiday, and then the next shot is them on holiday with like a drink in their hand, and they say, what I realized was that I actually needed therapy. And I think that's so true for when we start doing this work of excavating who we were meant to be and what kind of life we were supposed to lead, is that our mind is instantly goes to like, I want the full-time vacation. I want to break away from everything. And kind of the second part of that is, no, what you needed was therapy, or, whatever we replaced therapy for. What we needed was awareness of self. What we needed was stillness. What we needed was a connection with our inner child, right? All those, I was going to say little things. They're far from little. They're probably the biggest things that exist. But so as you're going through this process, especially for anybody reading this book on their own, right? You don't need to listen to that histrionic mind saying, do the extreme. Just use it as a signal of, there's pain here. Let me start working to excavate it and change my life so that there's less pain here. I think that is where we're going to stop for today.